Hello, this is Deborah Anderson, the BlkWmnAnimator, coming back to you with another video. And in this video, I have Tara Whitaker. Welcome.
Thank you.
So can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. My name is Tara Nicole Whitaker. I am a director and illustrator, and I've been working in animation for many years, about almost 20 now, so quite a while.
So you're from Brooklyn, New York. How was it growing up?
Pretty amazing. Yeah, I was very fortunate to grow up in a very art-loving family. My mom's a vocalist. My grandfather was a drummer in the Earl Garner Trio and in the original recording of Misty. So we had a lot of music and art in my family growing up. So it was always something that was really respected and cherished and encouraged in our household.
How did your mom being an artist like manifest in just like what you were exposed to and like the support from both your parents and stuff?
Yeah, there was a lot of support from both of my parents. I think they saw early on how much I loved to draw. So, they were always buying me art supplies as a little kid, and eventually signed me up for art classes at Pratt in Brooklyn on the weekends was something I loved to do when I was a kid. And eventually that kind of exploded into me wanting to draw all of the time, and eventually applying to CalArts and moving out here for animation.
So like growing up, was it like always like, jazz playing, or did you get exposed to a lot of different kind of music? Like what was that like?
Yeah, I would say mostly jazz and R&B was something I always heard in the background. My mom singing, and my dad was always really supportive too, buying me art supplies and sketchbooks and things like that. And they always encouraged me and said if this was something I wanted to do, to pursue it and, make my love for drawing something that I could do all the time. So I really, I'm so appreciative to them for that.
What are some of your best childhood memories?
Best childhood memories. I would say probably going to summer camp. I had a lot of summer camp as a kid in Connecticut. That was always really fun. My best friend and I would go and spend pretty much the whole summer at camp. Swimming, hiking, taking art classes, going fishing, canoeing. I love the outdoors. I think that kind of has influenced my artwork too, because I do love painting natural elements and flowers and animals.
Yeah. What would you say like your cultural makeup is, and not only to say like ethnicity, but like the culture in which you grew up, like your neighborhood and all that stuff? Like what is your culture, the uniqueness of where you're from?
Well, I grew up in Brooklyn in the 80s, and it was very, very diverse. I mean, I think my classes and my friends, we all had like a really diverse group of friends. So Latino, Black, Jewish, white, like just a whole melting pot of people hanging out and enjoying each other's company. It was a lot of fun.
Did you have any like clubs that you were part of, or sports or anything?
In high school, yeah, I was in soccer and softball. Of course, art club. I was in the marching band. So, yeah, maybe a little bit of a nerd.
What instrument?
Huh?
What instrument?
The flute, actually. Yeah.
Nice. So I can picture you playing the flute.
Exactly. I was super excited when I started first listening to Lizzo. I was like, yeah, see, people need to know how dope the flute is.
Right. Like, and then her just dancing, playing the flute, keeping embouchure like.
Oh, I know. Okay. I will admit I was never that cool, but that's what I aspired to be.
So do you have like a favorite like custom or tradition from like growing up that you guys did?
I don't know. I think just family time was always real important, like having our family dinners after school, or we'd go fishing in the lake in Pennsylvania, and my dad would catch a fish and grill that up out in the backyard. That was always really fun. Yeah, so just a lot of family time was really important to us.
So take us through your like journey in art and animation during your childhood to like high school.
So I was definitely one of those kids that was like drawing in my notebooks and my sketchbooks and textbooks in high school. I mean, I think I got pretty good grades despite all of that. I don't know how, but I think the drawing helped me like actually listen to what the teachers were saying to maybe because I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to have like something to do with my hands. So sketching and drawing, and then my art teacher in high school, Miss Farragona, was so supportive. Like I think she saw early on like that how much I loved this and wanted to do it. So she really helped me get my portfolio together. My mom really helped me get my portfolio together too, and my dad to really make sure that it was ready to go to apply to these different art schools, because that was a lot of work. I don't know if people realize all the time, unless they're artists, how much work it is to do portfolio prep for school applications.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my teacher, Miss Bergona, and my parents really helped me with that, just to really show I was serious about this. And so, yeah, I ended up getting into CalArts. And from there, one of my first jobs out of school was board revisionist.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was a prop designer for many years and character designer for many years, doing visual development as well and illustration work. And eventually, that kind of led into directing, having sort of a history of being in all these different roles in animation. I think really prepared me to be a director, to understand all the roles and how they all come together to create this final, episode at the end, where all the elements come together, all of the artists and creative minds come together to create something wonderful.
So when you were applying to college, like, were you in that time period of pre-technology where you had to, like, it was really hard to do the portfolio thing, or what space were you in?
Yes, exactly. This was 1998.
Yes.
So quite some time ago. So it was a physical, actual portfolio with high-res photocopies of my artwork, some original artwork. I think a couple colleges requested specific pieces for their application process,
Mm-hmm.
where they wanted the actual drawing or the actual painting to submit. So yeah, these were actual physical portfolios.
Right.
We had to mail out, and then just fingers crossed.
Yeah.
You didn't even ever see it again.
Yeah, I know. For me, like, so for people who remember, or at least in your region of the country, if you had that commercial where it was like, draw the turtle or draw the pirate, like, it was called art instruction schools. And so I actually did that in high school. And to get in, like, they required you to send like artwork. And I remember sending them this like drawing I did of Allen Iverson from like the cover of some magazine, and they did not give it back. Like, that was a really good drawing. Like,
oh no!
And I didn't take a copy of it or anything. And I was like,
that sucks.
Yeah, I got my Allen Iverson drawing.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So, like, what are all the colleges that you applied to?
I think my top ones were RISD and CalArts. Those were kind of the two, and a bunch of smaller ones as well. But I think, obviously, at the time, I really, really wanted to get into CalArts. I think it had the best character animation program. And that was kind of my dream school. So, and, obviously I wanted to come out to California just for a big change, having grown up on the East Coast. California just seemed like, there's palm trees and beaches, and it sounds amazing. I'd go to art school and learn how to be an animator.
Yeah. So with you, getting like a BFA in like character animation, like, was the idea to become an animator when you chose that major, or were there other thoughts?
I think at the time, yes, I really wanted to be an animator. And when I graduated, in 2002, those animation jobs kind of just weren't out there anymore, because I specifically wanted to be a 2D animator, a hand-drawn animator. And so I kind of had to, reevaluate what I wanted to do when I graduated. And that's how I ended up getting into design, because I really just wanted to draw.
Yeah.
That's what I realized. And I loved coming up with new characters. I loved, creating these new, identities. And I really just fell in love with the drawing process of coming up with these new characters. So that's kind of how I fell into design and visual development after I graduated.
So what were your biggest culture shocks moving from Brooklyn, New York to like Los Angeles?
I had visited here before, because I do have family out here.
Nice.
So I think the biggest culture shock was sort of the pacing seemed a little bit more laid back in certain ways, and in certain ways it's not, of course.
Yeah.
But I think I mostly just love the idea, I could drive to the beach in 20 minutes or something. That was before I knew about traffic, though.
Right. That's so funny. And then you did do like the puppet school. So what made you do that?
Oh, I've always loved puppetry. I've always loved the Muppets and the joy that Jim Henson's characters brought to the world, and that's always been something that really resonated with me. I think he has a quote, something like, "I just want to leave the world a better place," and so I always kind of resonated with that. I was like, that's something I would like to try to do with my work, and so that's one reason why I've always loved the Muppets. But yeah, so I did some puppetry. I took puppet classes, so I am a graduate of puppet school,
Nice.
and I know how to puppeteer for TV. It's quite fun.
Did that experience, like, what did that experience add that maybe people who just kind of stick to traditional animation or whatever, like, what did puppetry add to your like repertoire?
I think it's very similar in a lot of ways. You're coming up with new characters. You're character driven puppets. You want your puppet to be memorable when you look at the design of it. Finding the character's voice, I think, is something that is very similar to animation, because you want this character to feel alive, and you want people to identify with it, whether it's laughing at it or feeling some kind of emotion towards it. You want to connect with your audience. So I think there are a lot of similarities for sure.
Yeah, it kind of pops into my head about like how people don't realize how hard voice acting is, because you're like, you have to be a character with your voice, and you can't rely on your facial expressions like in regular acting and stuff like that. So I imagine that is the same for like puppetry, where you're like really trying to bring the character through the voice and your hand.
Right, exactly. And I've done puppet improv as well. So when you're doing that, it's a whole other challenge, because not only are you doing improv where you have to think on the spot, but you have to think on the spot with this character and with the motion of the character that you're puppeteering with your hand. Like it's a lot, but I think it was definitely like a fun challenge to kind of keep you on your toes.
Are there like exercises, because you're like sticking your hand up for like long periods of time, like is there like a regimen that they teach you?
Yeah, I would definitely say to do some lightweight lifts. But make sure you're doing both arms, because you definitely don't want to have like one really strong arm and then one really weak arm. Just want to stay balanced.
Yeah. So okay, this is the time to kind of like list projects, and like the point is to, and I'm not gonna list everyone. I'm gonna do a couple highlights, but the idea is like, people watching could be like, oh, somebody that looks like me worked on something I like. So highlights, let's see. Spike Lee's The 25th Hour, and some of this stuff is from IMDb, so just tell me if it's wrong.
No, I think everything on there is correct.
Okay. My Life as a Teenage Robot, Family Guy, various Bill and Mandy properties, Puppeteer for Wheels on the Bus, Chowder, We Bare Bears, Gravity Falls, DuckTales, Middle School Moguls, Louder and Prouder, Pierre the Pigeon Hawk, and then a couple highlights from books, Bubble Kisses, that was for like Vanessa Williams, The Square Root of Possible, a Jingle Jangle story. I like that show that was on Netflix, so Jingle Jangle. And then a couple of Shady Baby books for Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade. So, how is it like working with celebrities on their books, if you get to interact with them?
I actually don't get to interact with them. We usually correspond through the editor. Sometimes they have reached out on Instagram and sent like little like emojis and things like that, which is always really cool. I'm like, oh yeah, we're on the same page. Awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've all been really wonderful collabs, and it's fun to be a part of a project that I think brings positive message and diversity and a bit of joy, I think, hopefully into the world. One of my favorite projects also was the Baby Love series. I think that really something meant a lot to me, as well as the Misty Copeland Little Golden Book.
Nice.
Those are a couple more of my favorites, but they've all, meant something really special to me, just because I've always wanted to be an illustrator as well.
Yeah.
As much as I wanted to be an animator.
So what makes you identify with the Misty Copeland thing so much?
I grew up kind of looking up to her. When I was a kid, I had, the poster on my wall, or like the cutout from the magazines, because I think we're fairly close in age. And she was already obviously a very accomplished dancer at a young age. So just knowing like there was somebody out there who was that young and like that driven, and loving what she did and her art, that really resonated with me. And I was kind of like, yes, it's one of those things, I think, where you can see it, you can be it. And I was like, obviously I'm not a dancer, I'm not going to claim dance at all. But I think I understood her love for dance, because that's how I love art. So for me, that book meant a lot, because it was kind of like a combination of those things, where I'm drawing and designing my love in this book, and then her love for dance. Hopefully I was able to capture some of that feeling in the book. So just like all of the arts coming together, which I think is really cool and magical.
So what do you love about like animation and illustration, and like even from growing up, this is what I love, but now being in it, maybe there's some additional things. So what would you say?
Yeah, I think definitely being a part of these different projects has really had a huge impact on me, and how I feel about making art. Because obviously when you're, a kid, it's sort of just all up in the air, and you don't really know what to expect, and you can kind of only imagine. But I will say this, it's even better than what I could have possibly imagined. There's more roles than I would have even have imagined. So kind of getting to learn about all the different aspects of animation, the whole process has been really fascinating to me. Telling these hopefully touching stories that are inspirational and hopefully authentic, and reaching a diverse audience. I think that's something that's just really special, and I've been so grateful and fortunate to have been part of that story process.
With you originally wanting to do 2D animation, on the animation side, like how did you figure out what you wanted to do in the animation space without having those jobs there?
I think I just wanted to tell authentic and meaningful stories, and I wanted to see more diverse characters in the animation world, for sure. So realizing if I was in more of a art director role or director role, I think it comes from the top down, basically. So I realized, if I want to see those stories, I need to be a part of making those stories, and be a part of directing those stories. And so I have had a hand in some visual development and character design as well. If I have, been able to make any kind of impact, I would feel so grateful for that opportunity, and hopefully I have. But yeah, I just wanted to make authentic and moving stories, and have characters that have an impact on people, and hopefully the characters are people that an audience can relate to in some way.
So what would you say is your biggest breakthrough in your career, or have you had multiples?
I think multiples. Definitely some in animation, definitely some in the illustration world as well. I think my illustration career took off with the hashtag drawing while Black.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was pretty amazing to see. Because I would just kind of post artwork, and then, for fun, really not expecting anything to come of it. And then, having these publishers reach out to me via Twitter was pretty surprising and wonderful, because for the most part, originally my Twitter account was just pictures of my dogs. So seeing it kind of blossom into like something actually that would help my career was pretty amazing. So certainly through Twitter and Instagram, of course, as well. And then, of course, my animation breakthroughs have been working with the wonderful team on Proud, just a fantastic group of people, and I'm so honored and beyond humbled to know any of them. Really, they're so great and have been so inspiring to me.
So what are some challenges in your specialty or in working in certain projects, but you have like multiple specialties, but like let's pick character design. What are some like challenges when you're maybe starting out as a character designer that you have to kind of work through, and maybe giving tips to like people trying to break into character design? What are some things you have to kind of think of that you might not immediately think of?
I would definitely say continue to keep observing from life. I know, they probably say that in school, but keep up with it outside of school. Keep life drawing, keep drawing at the zoo, keep your sketchbook with you. If you, see someone interesting who looks cool and you want to do like a quick thumbnail of them. Because I think inspiration is all around us, people can give us ideas from anywhere. So I think it just remain open, remain being observant of your surroundings.
And is it similar like with prop design?
I think so too. And I think props is fun because you can really think about character when you're drawing props. Like, how would this character use this prop? Or would this character use this prop in a different way? How does that affect the prop? So I think, they go hand in hand that way.
What have you learned through your like life and career that would be beneficial advice to others?
I would say persistence. I think definitely, it maybe sounds cliche, but believing in yourself, because there will be times when it's really, really tough. And you may, get, your feelings hurt by working with a certain person or certain artist, so just, remain true to yourself. And just really, I think if you really love what you do, that love will show up in your work and people will respond to it. So I think I don't know, just keep swimming.
Right. Keep doggy paddling.
Exactly.
So I know with, being in the animation industry and being around all these people, like there is like a high propensity for people to have like, anxiousness and imposter syndrome and it's just like kind of all around us. So like, how has your imposter syndrome manifested in various ways in your life, and then how have you been able to like push through and even possibly overcome it?
Oh, I definitely have struggled with that for a very long time. But I think as I got older, I really just had to acknowledge that it wasn't helping me in any way. And so I really just put it in a cabinet and locked the door. That's really the only way to describe it, because it's still there, but I'm like, you know what? You're not doing me any favors. You're not helping me in any kind of a way. It's actually a detriment.
Yeah.
So, and I think that, I don't know if that just comes with being older, where you're like, whatever. I'm just going to do what makes me happy.
Yeah.
It's not making me happy.
Right. And I guess a lot of yours came through like comparison, and like you just got to run your own race.
Exactly. You just have to kind of be your own best competition. Stop comparing yourself to others. I would say compare yourself to 5-10 years ago. Are you feeling like you have developed since then? Well, I think then, you're on the path to success then.
So how was it directing on, and not any specifics, but like how was it directing on like Louder and Prouder and now like Pierre the Pigeon Hawk? Like, what did you learn being a director, particularly with like maybe hindsight being 2020, where you're like, oh, okay, I get I get how you can be a better character designer or whatever, having been in this seat. You get it now. Like, what are all the things you've learned being director?
I think one of the things I definitely have learned is you kind of need to know when to be decisive, know when you need to be flexible, and still foster a creative environment for yourself and for your crew. I've been fortunate to work with a lot of amazing people, and and learn with a lot of wonderful people, and that was the environment that they created. So it was definitely something that I wanted to create when I started directing. And I think that's the goal too. It's kind of like we are making amazing animation, but we do want to enjoy the process for ourselves as well, because I think that love will show up when the audience is watching it. And I've also learned to, as a director, to try and to tailor my communication style to what works best for my teammates individually. So I think that's something to work towards. Also, your experience and your personality will shape your directing style.
Yeah.
So I think it definitely it challenges you creatively, and I think it's a fun challenge, and you get to learn and grow with the people around you.
Yeah. I feel like for me, with being like a natural perfectionist, concentrating on the journey has been a way to help me kind of get out of that, get out of a lot of things. Because if you're enjoying the journey, then the end is going to be there, but it makes getting there a little bit easier because you're not concentrating on how hard it is sometimes. So even with learning how to realize, like, when you get critique or you have to edit something, it doesn't mean you suck. It just means that you didn't communicate the vision that is trying to be communicated.
Right.
And so, like, when I was working for the state of Louisiana, I remember having this mentality of like being a perfectionist. Like, I want to get it done right the first time, and that's just not possible working with human beings.
Absolutely.
So just kind of having to learn how to learning how to realize that you won't get it done in one time. Like, you're gonna have to keep coming back because either you didn't understand what the person told you, or they didn't provide you all the information, or it's just like, oh, it's just too much. Like, as novices, you might do too much, and it's like, no, we just need this little thing. So yeah.
Very true.
So are you a Trekkie?
Absolutely.
So talk about that. How did you get interested in Star Trek?
Yeah, absolutely. I would be delighted to. I will say this: I'm very excited because I just bought a new Lieutenant Uhura wig, and it arrived yesterday, and it's great. So I can't wait for Halloween this year. But yeah, so I actually became a Trekkie as a child growing up because my dad and I used to watch a lot of TV together, and two of my favorite things that we used to watch were like all of the Batman movies and Star Trek. So he and I were really Trekkies together. So that was like a special time. We could just like nerd out and watch together. And then I got into the original series because we used to watch Next Gen. And then when I was a little bit older, I got into the original series, and we watched those, and it was just, special, father-daughter time to watch the show together and nerd out over all the cool tech and all the stuff.
So, with the like recent passing of like Nichelle Nichols, what did she mean to you, and maybe even her character?
So much. I mean, just pioneering in this position that no one had ever seen a Black woman in before, and just her bravery and resilience, I think, is something that I will always look up to. Yeah, and she really reached for the stars and showed all of us that the stars are within our grasp.
Yeah. Do you have any other side interests?
I guess I definitely do. I love snowboarding. That was something, because I'm originally from New York, Pennsylvania area. So snowboarding, skiing, kayaking, canoeing, outdoor stuff, hiking. Sometimes, I don't know. Sometimes it's too hot and it's like out here, but
right.
But yeah, I surf a little bit, but not very well at all, really. And just hanging out with my dog. I mean, really, that's the best weekend I could ever ask for.
Yeah, when I lived in Korea, me and my coworkers, when I worked at the animation studio, me and my coworkers went snowboarding / skiing, and I primarily chose snowboarding because I'm like anti-flexible. So I just didn't want to know what would happen if the skis split apart. So I'm just like, let me just hop on this snowboard and then I can just fall over
I
and
feel like
not have
it's
to
easier
do
a little bit. Yeah.
not have to do the splits involuntarily. And then like going with my coworkers at first. And I never was fluent in Korean and they weren't fluent in English. So like trying to learn snowboarding. And then, before I turned the camera on, I talked about being cold. And so when I went out there, because it was my first time snowboarding when I was in Korea, and so I had entirely too many clothes on.
Oh no.
And so like it was kind of like a short trip where half the time was me spent like going back and taking clothes off and then coming. And so they didn't have that much time to teach me. So I never, like in that trip with my coworkers, I never learned how to stand up.
Oh no, let's try it again sometime.
Yeah, no, but I went back with one of my friends who spoke fluent English, and I learned how to stand up really quickly. I don't know if I still remember how to stand up because that was such a long time ago, like over 10 years ago, but I did learn at some point. But it was just like the combination of us not speaking each other's language and then me having to like go back and take off clothes so that I wasn't so like stiff.
Yeah.
Like I just was not able to learn. So like how has it been from like when you started in the animation industry and even the illustration industry of like the few people to like now, like how has that journey been witnessing, like how did it feel initially and then how does it feel now with more people that look like you?
It's pretty incredible. Because for the longest time, I think there were just a handful of us, Black women, and for a while, I think I was the only one that I knew for a couple years, and then it felt like more people were trickling in, and I was like, yes, and I was actually teaching character design at Woodbury a couple years ago, and my class was super diverse. I was like, this is incredible. Like, this is amazing. This is what I want for the industry, for all of us.
Yeah.
For the next generation of kids to say like, hey, look at all these people. That could be me next, But yeah, it's pretty amazing. And I think it has made the stories that we're telling more amazing. Because hopefully, we're getting more stories, more unique stories, and reaching a wider audience.
So how has it been to go from like, working on projects that maybe you did feel connected to and didn't feel connected to like being a director of a project that you possibly definitely felt connected to? Like how was that like the difference?
Pretty incredible. I mean, honestly, a dream come true to be on a show like Proud, having grown up watching it, and loving those characters and feeling like, for the first time seeing myself and my friends in this group of characters. So just knowing that, we're part of this history now, we're making history in animation, is pretty humbling and wonderful. It's amazing, and I really hope it shows the next generation of kids like their stories are important and we want to hear them. Come tell your stories.
So like in that experience of being surrounded by so many diverse people working on Proud, what is the feelings and like energy and like experiences that you got to have working on that project?
So many feelings. Definitely, I feel like we made something pretty groundbreaking and emotional. Definitely some moments where I felt like the tears come to my eyes because they felt so poignant and profound.
Yeah.
And then sometimes tears from crying from laughter. So
yeah.
Really coming, I think, full circle emotionally. I think just some incredible moments that I hope will touch everyone.
And for me, like watching the new season of like it's cool being in 2022 where you have so much more expansive diversity, which whether it's like LGBTQIA and all these different storylines of continuing like the activism and stuff like that, but just like the diversity in the diversity. So like, what is it like to be this person, the intersectionality of all the ways that you are a minority, but also like being able to help other people be seen.
I don't know. I feel it's definitely a humbling experience and a responsibility to make sure that everyone feels as seen as possible.
Yeah.
But it's a huge task, and that's why I feel like we need as many voices as possible to be heard, because it can't be down to one person to try and do all of that.
Yeah. I remember watching like the little, preview of the first 2 episodes, and then I hopped over to where EJ Johnson was interviewing Ralph Farquhar and Bruce, and just like because you see all these people try to like pitch things, and sometimes it's like people kind of come from where they grew up and the decade they grew up, and so it's like they're not keeping up with the relevance of things. And so when he was asking the question of, or when the question was being asked of like, how did you stay relevant in the writing, and they're like, we hired younger writers. Like, what a thought!
What a thought!
Like, not trying to, hey yo, and try to figure out like how do young people speak. Like, actually have them in the room and write.
Exactly. And I think that was one of the wonderful things about that environment, is like we were all so open to learning from each other, because we're all coming from a place of our own experience. That's all anyone can do, and that's why we need each other.
Because our scope is kind of like, can be small. What are your thoughts on getting more Black content in TV and movies? Like, what do you kind of hope for? Selfishly, any storylines that you hope for? Like, what do you hope for the future?
I would love to see more diverse stories being told. I think there's so many more stories out there than we have even taken a glance at. African folk tales, Asian folk tales. Like I feel like we have been getting quite a lot of reboots where they are just like switching out the ethnicities, but it's still the same general storyline that we've seen before. So I would love to see the history of the stories being told more diverse too, going way back. I love fairy tales, but I feel like we're kind of in a small bubble of fairy tales. You know what I mean? I feel like there's so many more out there. Mythical creatures from different cultures fascinate me as well, but I feel like again we're kind of stuck with the same mythical creatures over and over again a little bit. So yeah, I think that would be really cool, is to kind of explore more diverse fairy tales and fantasy from different cultures. And I would love to see more diversity in skin tones as well. I think in animation we run into the same colorism problems I think that live action does. And I think that's something that we could do better on generally.
Yeah, I know a lot of my like earlier videos were kind of addressing several topics. So I kind of tackled the Princess Tiana thing that happened, where it was like a July and they had the like original the 3D version of like the 2D character design, and then that September they kind of changed her into like this like light skinned mixed curly haired girl, and there was like a lot of discussion online where people who don't know animation are like, oh well, maybe it's hard to light darker skinned people, and I'm like, no, literally in 3D you can attach a light to a character and it doesn't have to affect the entire environment. Like if you
And
can
the light
light
doesn't affect her hair texture.
right. And they literally created it like and then changed it like, and then I was like, if you can light a black suit on Hotel Transylvania, you can light a black person.
Yeah. We
So,
can do
yeah.
better. We can do better.
Yeah, so that's kind of something I wish for, because I know you have like a breadth of like skin tones in your work, but sometimes I feel like even if people like do fan art or kind of create characters, they always like there's like these real people who are dark skinned, but then once they become fan art or like an illustration, they like lighten their skin, and it's like learn how to draw or color, learn how to color darker people, like.
Exactly.
Like, don't make them lighter.
No, and learn how to light dark brown skin. Like, if you need reference, watch Insecure because everybody's looks freaking amazing.
Yes. Yes. Insecure is
glowing skin and gorgeous. Like, come on.
And then even the innovation with the lighting of like the purples and the blues and all that type of stuff.
Beautiful. So cinematic.
Yes. So as you get closer, I don't know if you consider yourself, but like as you get closer to being a veteran in the animation industry, what have you decided is like your purpose in regards to like Blackness and Black professionals in animation, like whether it's mentoring or just kind of being an example? Like, what is your part? What have you decided is your part?
I think one of the things I found I really love is mentoring. That's been really incredible experience for me over the last couple years, whether it's been part of WIA or, teaching, because I think, it's something that I wish I had growing up and in school, was seeing someone like myself in the industry and then actually being able to meet them and, learn from them. And that's not to say that I didn't have incredible teachers at CalArts or high school. They were unbelievable, and I owe them so much. But at the same time, I think this next generation of artists will have, more Black artists to look up to. And I think that's really powerful and really inspirational.
What do you hope for the future of animation as far as like innovation and like the storylines? You kind of already mentioned how there's like this repetitive nature, but like what do you hope people do as far as innovation and like characters and just the whole gamut of it?
I would love to see more traditional hand-drawn animation, actually. I think that would be amazing. Bring it back. I mean, there's obviously people that are still doing it. But that's not to say that it's not being done. I mean, obviously there are plenty of incredible films still coming out, but I want more. I'm greedy. I want more.
So like in the same vein of like bringing stuff back, like what do you hope people, like young people, are doing in this current landscape of like accessibility, technology, the internet, that you either wish you could have done when you were younger, or like you're kind of tapping into now that you have access to it? Like what do you hope young people are doing?
Yeah, I think with the technology now, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to really make the art and make the film that you want to make. You don't have to wait for some big studio to reach out to you and connect with you. With what we have now, I mean, you can really do your own independent film and upload it, which I think is really powerful and amazing. No notes, do what you want. Tell the story that you want to tell. The story of your authentic self. I think that's really incredible.
I know you've said that you've pitched before. You don't have to get like specific, but what are some themes that you would like to bring to the screen?
I love adventure and fantasy, so I would love, to have my own story someday where it's, diverse cast, telling like a fun and authentic adventure story with like these characters that feel real and hopefully would connect with an audience.
What are your What are your favorite like adventure things to watch?
Well, I'm an 80s kid, so I really love like The Princess Bride and Goonies and Back to the Future.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So on the spot, but is there a story like that you have never gotten to talk about in like in an interview, or like somebody wouldn't think to ask? Did you get to have like pizza with Bruce and he gave you an anecdote about pepperoni?
I don't know. Oh my gosh, my mind like just suddenly like went blank.
I feel like a lot of times when I'm interviewing people, once the camera turns off, people are like, this awesome story that I didn't see on camera.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I feel like this is probably a question that the one question I should send beforehand.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm trying to think of something interesting. I don't know. I mean, I guess I could tell the story of how like Bruce reached out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Feel free. Go ahead.
Okay. I mean, it's pretty short, but it just kind of goes back to how my Twitter account was just a mess of like dog photos and just silly memes and like retweeting Muppets and whatever. I don't know. It was just me goofing off basically. And then I think I started posting some of my artwork with drawing while black or just kind of just for fun. I was like, oh cool, I'm gonna jump in on this. My friends are doing it too. And then checking my DMs and then what? Bruce Smith? Wait, what? Because obviously, I grew up watching everything he's worked on, and
right
from Bebe's Kids to Tarzan. So just have been a lifelong huge fan. And so he reached out via Twitter and was engaging to see if I was interested to be a director on Proud, and I was like, oh my gosh, of course! Like what?
Like this is not even a question. This is just a statement with a question mark at the end.
Exactly. Just I'm at the studio tomorrow. Whenever. Just let me know. But it was also really pretty funny to me as well because I was actually, when I was at Cal Arts, I was a technical assistant or teacher's assistant. So I was a TA, so setting up, the equipment before all the classes and things like that. So when he came to Cal Arts to do a lecture about Proud Family back then, this was maybe like 2001 or 2000 or something like that. He came to do a lecture about the show and tell us about the characters and a little bit of what they were planning. I was actually his TA, so I set up, the TV and I think it was a VCR at the time.
Yes.
Totally dating myself now, but but yeah, so it was just pretty incredible to kind of come full circle that way.
Yeah.
To be the TA for that lecture series to eventually getting to work as a director with him. So just incredible, very humbling experience.
I feel like it's the more you live life, it's cool to see how things kind of match up and come full circle, but also like kind of how small the world is, even though it is so big. Like just being able to have these touching points where you're like, wow, like how did that happen?
Exactly.
Yeah. So my last question is, if someone was producing a documentary about you, what things would you want them to highlight about your life outside of your work in animation and illustration?
I would say I would definitely recommend highlighting how important music has been in my life and my family's life. Going back to my grandfather being a drummer in the Earl Garner Trio, I think that love and music of that love of music and art has like filtered down to the rest of us. So it was always something that was highly respected and loved in our family, and it was always something that that it was seen as something you could pursue legitimately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say are some of your favorite genres of music?
Definitely jazz, of course.
Uh-huh.
Again, growing up in the 80s and 90s, listening to like a lot of R&B, like Aaliyah, Whitney, love Mariah too. So I think I still pretty much that's kind of what I listen to a lot.
Yeah.
To this day, yeah.
It's like in that like nostalgic feeling of I've said before, like I would like to find a guy who makes me feel like 90s R&B makes me feel when I listen to it, like that warm feeling.
Right, absolutely.
So, how can people follow you?
Well, I am on Instagram at Tara Nicole Whitaker. That's TaraNicolewhitaker. And I am on Twitter, but I mostly post my art on Instagram.
So I would like to thank you for allowing me to for coming on my platform and allowing me to highlight you. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for asking me. I was super flattered when you reached out.
And I've actually met Tara like a couple times in person. So this is like one of the few people I've interviewed where I was like, I've met you before I interviewed you.
Yep.
So thanks again. And to everyone out there, I want you to like So I Know It's Real, comment, tell how you feel, subscribe to Citadel, and sign up for post notifications to show your zeal. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.